Hey, everybody. So, welcome to the show today. So, I want to take a moment and introduce you to somebody who is a performer, an artist, a musician, has a passion for control line airplanes,
Woo.
is a connoisseur of fine North Carolina barbecue,
Yeah.
and a YouTuber with 18 million plus views going all the way back to 2007. Did you know that, Chuck?
I don't really look at that stuff too much. I just sort of know because people remind me that I'm coming up on 100,000 subscribers, which, it's pretty thrilling considering I never ask anybody to thumb me up or to subscribe. I don't have the self esteem for that. I just go, if they watch, they watch. If they don't, they don't. That's cool.
Yeah. Ultimately, and I gave his name away already. The cat's out of the bag. Ultimately, he's a backpacker and he's a great resource for people who hammock, no matter what their skill level is. And so I've invited Shug Emery on the show. I started looking at backpacks recently. If you guys remember the podcast, you remember Alan. We call him Rooster. Rooster's a hammocker. He says, "Man, you really need to try it. You need to get into it." So I started getting into it. And unfortunately, I ran into all these words and all this lingo, am steel, tree hugger, whippy sling, top quilt, underquilt, continuous ridgeline, tarp, marlin spikes. I'm pulling my hair out. And he said, "You need to go watch Shug. Shug will get you pointed in the right direction." And what I really like about Shug, and you guys will be able to tell here, is he's not going to force a hammock on you. He's not going to tell you you're wrong for hammocking. If you're a tent guy, stay a tent guy. If that works for you. But there are other options out there, and a hammock is a true system. There are multiple parts to it. You need to try to get all those right. And I'm hoping Shug can get us pointed in the right direction and shed some light on some of these things that we're going to bump into when we start to looking at hammocks.
I'm still thinking of barbecue. Carolina style with a little slaw on that sandwich, man, especially red slaw.
Oh, yeah.
That's, you really take a hit when you move away from North Carolina. It just does not exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
So one of the questions I got on my list for you, Shug, is how does a guy, Shug's are you originally from North Carolina?
no, the thing is, my dad was born in Emery, South Carolina. Uh, didn't want to do the mill village. Didn't want to work in the mills, the textile mills.
Yeah.
So he joined the Navy at 17. My mom is from Ireland. He met her there. I was born in Derry, Northern Ireland. My older sister's born in London, England. My little sister's born in Shelby, North Carolina. So we were always a military family, just moving all over. And one thing growing up in Charlotte in high school, I had one teacher that said to me, going, "Sean, it's a sorry thing, but you're smart on topics and in areas that we can't grade you on. You've lived around the world. You speak a lot of languages, but just enough to get by." And I'm going, "It's all I want to know. I don't need to be able to conjugate in French. Just need to be able to say, 'You are very beautiful.'" So that's how the North Carolina thing came. And when my mom finally talked my dad into getting out of the Navy, we pretty much settled in Shelby, North Carolina. And that led us to Charlotte until I graduated high school and started going to college. And then that led me to Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And from then on, life was just an explosion.
Awesome. So I guess that brings me to my next question. So guys, when you watch his videos, you're going to see all sorts of stuff. He is a master of the unicycle. He can juggle like nobody I've ever seen. He's just a great performer. And some of his performance videos are up there. Don't focus just on the hiking stuff. Make sure you check out some of those other videos that are up there. He talks about barbecue. He talks about performing and what that's like. And you'll just see some cool stuff. But how does a Southern gentleman from the great state of North Carolina end up in the great white northern wonderland of Minnesota?
Marriage. My wife and I met, Meg. She's right from here. We live in Roseville, Minnesota, but she grew up in Mendota Heights, little town. It's like Charlotte and Lake Wiley, a little bit, pretty close. She was a showgirl aerialist on Ringling, and we met. And her parents, the first few times they met me, I was in full clown makeup, and they never said to her, "Don't marry that man." They were very open. So we left the circus and we lived in New York City for 8 years. And eventually I was just craving having a driveway again. And we did a coin toss whether to live in North Carolina or Minnesota. Minnesota won, and we've been here ever since. So pretty much hung my derby here, and this is where we've been. And, I do love it up here. Very different. It's a long winter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that tale. That's how that ended up.
I gotcha. So when did backpacking become a part of your life? Was it early on or later in your life?
No, no. It's funny. I get most of the interviews I get. People are really perplexed that I'm a performer and a backpacker, and I always feel like they go, "Well, aren't you performers just a bunch of low life, people that don't want to do any more work than you have to do?" Or I don't see you going in the woods. But to be honest, I was always I was backpacking and camping and being a scout, and I was a Boy Scout for years in Troop 51 out of Charlotte, North Carolina, up at Cook's Memorial Church up there in Shuffletown. And went camping with my dad as a kid. He would always, because he was a Navy chief, he'd always meet the local scout masters, and he didn't want to be a scout master, but he wanted to go camping, and he took me along. So I'd just be this little kid sleeping in a lean-to out in the woods with other scouts. So I was always a camper and a backpacker before I was ever an entertainer. So I remind people that was first. So that's always been a really integral part of my life, to get out there and just connect with the woods and eat M&Ms and just be away from hubbub. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I think I still meet so many people that just don't understand, particularly when I do a solo, like, why would you do that? Is someone forcing you? And it's like, no, it's a spiritual, it's like church for me. It's my Billy Jack moment. I like getting away. I'm a spirited introvert. I like to test my skills, even though sometimes I like it best, like when I would do my show. If I didn't have to juggle everything, I felt like that was a good show, because I was doing banter and having moments with the crowd. And if I go on a backpacking trip and I'm going, never had to use my knife, never even built a fire, I could, but I'm basically lazy. I just wanted to be out here enjoying it. It's like I'm walking all day. Is that not enough work?
Yeah. Gotcha. So you start off backpacking, and I assume were you a tent guy first? Did tents work for you? I've watched so many videos of yours over the past month, hours of Shug running through my head. I think you mentioned this in one of them.
No, I was always, of course, tents, tarps. I always loved just sleeping under a tarp the most. But of course, me and my friend Hickory, we were in the same scout troop. We'd all, and Turk, even when we left scouts and we all went to college, we'd still all go backpacking. We'd meet up. We'd just carry in bottles of whiskey and tequila and fully cooked pork butts in our pack, and just leave that pork butt just sitting in the Linville River for 3 days and hoping it doesn't get tainted. But we always carried our trash out. We never broke our bottles, because we were in a great scout troop with great scoutmasters who were all former Marines. And if we did not abide by the rules, we got dunked upside down in a 55-gallon barrel until we started kicking. Good times in the 70s, a different time. You couldn't do that now. But so tents were always the thing for me. And then I had gotten this Lawson hammock. It's sort of a spreader bar camping hammock. It's kind of flat. It's not a bridge hammock. If you look them up, I had bought one years ago, and I used it some, and I liked it, but it was heavy. And then that led me to go through my ultralight phase, where I was just doing tarps and bivvies. I was not bringing enough food. I was eating spirulina tablets. I was trying to have just 2 squares of toilet paper a day. I shivered through many a night and was always hungry. Proud of myself for doing it, because it did make me pare down a lot of my kit. But I was going, I want to be comfortable. So I'm going to bring things back in now, spend a little bit more money, get rid of that 7-pound synthetic crappy sleeping bag, and get myself a real nice top quilt. And through that discomfort of ultralight, my whole thing was just always, I liked having my coffee in the morning before I ever got out of my tent, just kind of laying in the sleeping bag. And I got in a Henry Shire's contrail, little, small, lightweight tent. And was kind of laying in there, and I was putting stuffed sacks up under my arm in the morning, just trying to get in a comfortable position to have my morning coffee. And I was going, there has got to be another way. My arm's falling asleep. I feel kind of gimped up here. And I went, I'm going to go back and dig that Lawson hammock out. So I got it out, fooled with it, put it away again, went and bought an Eno at REI, laid in it for a day, went, returned it, and then made my own hammock, and then just started discovering what you were talking about earlier. This hammocks have a huge learning curve, and I think it weeds a lot of people out. There's 2 types of personality. those that are going to really like all the fiddling, and those that just want to throw their tent down, put their gear in, and be done. I enjoy all the aspects to the hammocking. And what it did, Chad, was at that time in my life, it breathed new life into my backpacking. It's just like I'd been camping and doing stuff since I was 11 years old. And the hammock, the discovery, the journey of all of that made me want to get out there with it and fail and learn how to do it. So it reinvigorated. I have this list of a video I'm getting ready to do of what I like about hammocks and a few cons too, just to round it out. But the number one thing was it just got me excited about backpacking again. And then I started getting 10 hours of sleep a night. So enough said, man. That was my journey right there, and I'm still kind of on it.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned the Eno, because my journey started similar. So I struggle with sleeping at night. I'm cramped in this tent. I'm tossing and turning. I'm not happy with the sleep I'm getting. I'm ticked off when I get out the tent. And
hey, how tall a guy are you?
I'm 6'4".
Okay, 6'4".
Yeah, and so right there on the edge of having a hard time finding tents for me.
Feet touching the ends of the tents, right?
Yeah. And so my wife, she says, "Hey, I got you something," and it's one of these subscription boxes for hikers. I'm like, "All right, whatever." So I shove it to the side, and a couple of days later, I open it up, and lo and behold, there's an Equip Day Hiker hammock in there. And it's more like an Eno brand. It's just a simple day, take it out on a day hike, throw it in the trees. It's very much like
it's a short hammock, at about 9 feet.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah. But this one holds 400 pounds, which got my attention immediately, because I'm 290, 300, and I'm always worried about how, can it hold me? And sure. I went out in the yard and I sat in it for an hour, just hanging out one day at lunch. And I immediately ran inside when I was done and called my buddy Rooster and said, "Dude, you got to get me in hammocks." And that's how this whole thing started for me. So it's interesting to hear that you had somewhat of a similar situation. And I'll talk about this on another video, but Shug turned me on to a place called Superior Gear, and a guy named Danny. And Danny makes a hammock that has fewer moving parts and pieces. It sort of comes together as one. In fact, there's one right there.
I got it hanging right there.
Yeah.
I'm loving that thing, man. I love it. And I think it's going to give a lot of people an easier time getting into hammocks, but we can get back to that. Yeah. Also, I wanted to say, everybody needs a friend named Rooster.
They do, don't they? Big shout out to Rooster. So I cannot wait. I am chomping at the bit for this hammock to come so I can go set it up. I'm reinvigorated about the hikes I got coming up. I'm going to through hike the Foothills Trail, which you've done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's fun. Yep. We want to go do it again, me and Hickory, just to do it the other direction this time. And, you do these trips and then they're just kind of a blur, because we did it fairly quickly because we wanted to have time to go to the Linville Gorge too, because we get 8 or 9 days together. But on this Superior hammock, I'll tell you, I usually sleep in an 11-foot hammock, but Danny reached out and got in touch with me about just trying one. And I said, sure, I'll try it. I don't guarantee that I'll do a video. I probably don't want to like it. I said, but if you want to loan me one to try, I'll give you my thoughts. And it was a 10-footer. And I was super comfortable in it. And I thought I was not going to like the integrated underquilt. Mm-hmm. Man, because the first few times I kept reaching over to adjust my underquilt and realized, oh yeah, I don't have to do that. It's right there. And I don't know if you saw the video. He loaned me I think it was a 30 degree. And I took it out and it got down to 18 degrees and I was not cold. Got down to 14 degrees the next night, and I did start to feel a chill, but I had brought along a little partial 40 degree sewn through underquilt just as backup. Got up, threw that on real quick, was perfect. So for a 30 degree hammock underquilt to get down to 18 comfortably, that's pretty amazing. He really puts a lot of down. I find it comfortable. It's got great view. I like his philosophy. And I think what really wrecks it, I've had so many people reach out to me about hammocks and they're getting frustrated and they're getting pissed off, quite frankly, because of all the bits. Not everybody has pitched a tarp before. So they get their hammock set up. Now they got to deal with pitching a tarp, and tarping is its own art, and the angles of the hammock. And then you get into the insulation, pads, underquilts. Underquilts is usually the break-in point for people, because if they don't get it set up right and have gaps, they'll get cold, and they spent like $270 on an underquilt that's supposed to be a 20 degree and they're getting cold at 40 degrees. And even though I tell them it's probably user error, they've had it. They don't want to go through getting that thing set up properly. And it's one of the reasons I started doing videos on hammocks. I just go, I just want to fly out and help this person with their underquilt. I can cure them, man, if I could just be there. So this Superior eliminates that part of the equation. And the other thing I'll say this, I took that 30 degree out there. Mine is a 15 degree here. And then I got a 30 degree top quilt too that I snap on for this cold weather here as an underquilt. Probably never use it as a top quilt, just always use it as to boost this one. I laid out, and we had a freak month ago 75 degree day, and I went and laid out there in that 30 degree for like 2.5 hours to tell my wife going, I got to go do some research, honey. I'm taking one for the team here. So I've got to go have a nap. And I did not get too hot. You know, you just use a lighter top quilt or just throw the top quilt off. So surprisingly, I was never hot because I always, even when I come to the Carolinas, camp in the gorge, I always bring my 20 degree Franken quilt. It's a partial quilt, and I'm never too warm in it, and I'm always warm enough when I need it. So it is a super hammock. I really hope you enjoy it. Its suspension is cool. I've been super tickled because I'm old school and I just don't want to like new things. Yeah. And I've been taking it on every trip, man.
Yeah. So I ordered the 11 foot. I went 40 degrees because I live in the Carolinas.
You'll like the 11. I'm sure you're 6'4". Nice to have that extra space.
Yeah. His suspension, which is where it attaches to the tree and how all that hangs, guys. If you don't know, watch Shug's video. He goes into great detail. Just dig through there. You'll see tons of them. Looks simple, easy to use. He tells me the thing will hold 400 pounds. I know as I get more into this, I can go to Dutchware and Hammock Gear and some other places and really get crazy with the suspension if I need to, especially to get it a little bit lighter. But I cannot wait to get my hands on this hammock from Danny at Superior Gear and check it out. I know he's probably tired of me because I keep checking with him every week. Hey, is it ready? Is it ready? And he's like, no, not yet. So
he's got a little shop in his house with a couple of helpers. And, I was happy that I was able to, like I promised him, I said, if I don't like it, I will never say anything bad about it. I just won't show it. Yeah. But the way I like to review things now is I don't really like to send me something and I'll do a review because it looks like I'm trying to pimp a product. So I always tell people, send it to me. I'll take it out on a trip and I won't say much about it. And my viewers will notice, well, now, Sugar, notice you got a new hammock there. What's that hammock? What's that hammock? They'll start asking and they can actually see me using it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just let it fade away. But it was so nice to be able on the first trip to go, man, I am loving this thing, Yeah. And the thing I wanted to mention while it's on my mind, and you were talking about that it will hold 400 pounds and suspensions. And the question is when folks, hog mollies have reached out to me on YouTube, gals that go, I'm 6'7", 380 pounds, or I'm over 400 pounds. I'm a big fella with broad shoulders and big hands. I always go, you can find hammocks that will hold the weight. What I want to remind you of is to be very, very, very careful on your choosing of your trees and knowing the health of the trees. That is really, we're hanging these hammocks off these trees, and I'm very picky. Friends that have, people that have gone to me see me talking to the tree. I go up and I actually kind of give the tree a little pat and a little talking to, and I ask permission to be on it that night and say, I've chosen you special. You seem like a great tree with a smooth bark. And if you could just hold me tonight and not fall on me, I'd super, super really appreciate that. And then I thank them in the morning. And why not, man? Don't have a chip on your shoulders because you're hanging yourself between these trees and what is up in those limbs. So I think it's worth really having some knowledge about. So I'm careful at my weight at about 195 to 200, depending on how much baked goods I'm eating in the season, is to be very aware of that, of your trees, take a little time to knock on that wood and look at the roots and just feel really good if that tree is going to hold you. I don't think that's talked about enough in hammocks and needs to be.
Yeah, Rooster, as soon as we get to the campsite, we're working our way through sections of the AT. I hope to take them to the Linville Gorge. I had a chance. I'm mentored. This is so ironic that you bring up Shelby. I'm mentored by a group of guys. They're all Boy Scout fathers. So their kids have gotten through Boy Scouts, they moved on, but they call themselves the Old Man Hiking Club out of Shelby, North Carolina, and they're sort of mentors of mine. And they take me out, and I go on trips with them, and they help me with questions and issues and that sort of thing. And when I go out with Rooster, Rooster is always looking up at the trees, and his original first name was going to be Tree Bender because he was always hanging in these trees, and I'm always wondering, is that tree going to hold him? But he does a great job looking for trees, so that's a great point for you to bring up.
Look for those widowmakers. Hicks and I sometimes, Hickory and I, will be in the gorge, and we camp down there across from Cathedral Falls. It's this really steep area. You could barely, if you put a tent on the ground there, you're going to be on a pitch. Perfect for hammocks, but there's a couple of big, mean beech trees and stuff up the hill leaning down into the gorge, and you have to go up there and go, I always look at the fall and imagine the fall of the tree. I kind of think of the wind and the way that tree is leaning, and will it get caught on something? Will it bounce over? If it did, and you have to kind of sit there and go, hey, beech tree, man, I respect trees so much. You're a beautiful tree, very good looking. I don't know your gender, but I'm just going to call you a good looking tree. And if you could just please not fall on us tonight, that would be great. And reading those trees and reading perspective problems out there, tenters should do that too. They're under trees as well. But, I always say all secure in sector 7 and checking the perimeter. I always check the perimeter of a campsite, looking for bail options. If a big storm came in, is there somewhere I can hunker down next to a big rock? If trees are falling, that'll give me a fighting chance, or thunder or lightning if I got to exit the hammock. But I look at those trees, and many a time me and Hicks have hung. One was on the foothills trail, and you could see it on the video. He hung his hammock. We're sitting there, and he's fixing his little dinner, and he's looking. He's going, "Hey man, you think that tree leaning right there is dead?" And I said, "Well, it's not attached to anything." And it was just this dangling huge thing. And he's going, "Yeah, man, I think I'm gonna go over there and move my hammock." So once in a while, you got to kind of move your stuff. And I see people get into hammocks and they think they're going to beat all the tenters. I'll be up first, and it's like, man, it's not a competition. A lot of times, the tenters, you can see where a tent spot is. It's a big, flat, muddy place. They'll throw the tent, slip the poles in, bang, done. And we're still walking around looking for that little perfect place. And I enjoy that part of it. Like I might find a place back in the woods a little bit. I'm not down where everybody's farting and burping and talking. I think if you're a hammocker, you tend to be a little bit of an introvert. It has to be in you to want to sleep alone in your own little space.
Yeah.
Away from, sometimes your friend's right next to you, pretty close, and other times you're very far away. And I think extroverts sometimes don't like hammocks because of that. Just they're not in the tent with someone.
Yeah, so it's funny you bring all that up. So there's two things there I want to talk about. First of all, the gorge. So there's you guys that don't know, he's talking about the Linville Gorge in North Carolina, which
it'll hurt you.
Is some of the hardest hiking, for me anyway, some of the hardest hiking in North Carolina. It's a cool spot to be in, especially when they're flying the fighter jets through the gorge, and you can see that on some of Shug's videos. It's pretty
Scout troop always went there. That's why we knew of it. That's why they bring us up to camp.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I listened to a podcast called Away Message, and last year or the year before, I got turned on to a group that I'd never heard of before called the Gorge Rats. And Shug is a member of the Gorge Rats. Yeah, see, and he has the patch. But I found out about them in a very weird way, an unfortunate way that I think has turned out okay. But this guy did an episode on the guy who fell. You were there the day the guy fell in the gorge.
Me and Hickory, I have a video on it. We got down there. It was I was the one that saw him fall. It was a strange day, and we're all doing this hike, and it was right after the foothills trail. Me and Hicks had got to the gorge. We were kind of tired. This guy was leading this group hike, and just a day hike. But there's so many rough trails that people don't know about, and we were going out toward the Camel, and it was it was hairy. I was in the back of the pack. I was nervous for a few of the people on that hike. Number one, there was a lot of people on it. Number two, some of these folks, I questioned their ability, not their enthusiasm, but their ability, because this is rough. And it was even hard for us. And we got to this place, it's really sketchy. You have to either climb up the rocks or climb this little tree and jump onto this rock to get up this hill. And everybody's dealing with it. And there's one of the group, he was this man who's a doctor, was sort of at the bottom of the rocks, and he was struggling with how to get up, and everybody was going to lower him a rope. And I watched Carolina Backpacker, who was in the back with me and Hickory, just kind of walk by him. I'm already at the top of the rock. I'm looking down, and I figured he must know another little place around there to climb up. And it was a windy day, and I'm standing there, and everybody's over here trying to help this doctor up with this rope, talking him through it. Hey, hang on, get your hiking poles off your wrist. Suddenly I see Carolina Backpacker. He's log rolling down the hill. And my first thought is going, is he messing around? And I'm going, no, he couldn't be. And I watched him roll off the mountain. And I said in my wife's always told me, she said, Shug, man, Sean, you're going to be the boy that cried wolf. And I just kind of looked up and I said, Carolina Backpacker just went off the mountain. And everybody went, oh, no, Shug, you're kidding. I saw my buddy Hickory's face, and he said, man, I knew you weren't lying. I knew you were telling the truth. I could tell by the tone. Wasn't trying to be too excited about it, but matter of fact. And anyway, the video, I think it's called Black Hawk Rescue in Linville Gorge. And we were there with him the whole time. But that said, the Linville Gorge is tough, but it will hand you so many rewards after it slaps you around a little bit. It'll kick your butt, but then go, hey, check this out. And you'll get some astounding view or just a wonderful moment. And it's become quite popular. It used to not even be known about much when we were younger. You'd hardly see anybody there, but it is not a place where you count your miles. You just go do your hikes and don't even worry about miles. Rugged.
Yeah. So since a lot of my listeners live in the Carolinas, one major takeaway from there is don't go there without some experienced people. I don't think it has a lot of signs. Does it? Doesn't have trail markers?
Not really. Just not till you get, there's trails all over the place. There might be some colored paint. It's the Ginger Cake area has some of the strangest little trail connectors. But, if you get down to the Linville River Trail, down the Conley Cove Trail, that is probably one of I would say, the easiest route down for your first trip to the river, because it's got switchbacks, and then you can break south, and there's Camp Con. There's a big place to camp. Some of the other trails pinch in. Bynum Bluff, some of these places, they're a bit more rugged and hard, but there's all kind of places at the top where you can camp on the Keesler Memorial Highway side or over at Table Rock. But, there's tons of options there, but there's it's steep and it's just rugged. It's just, that's the word. It's just rugged.
Gotcha. All right. So I don't want to take too much away from the hammock. So let's get back to the hammock. So hammock, they come in a million different types of fabrics. Is there, there's all sorts of different setups for tarps. There's Dyneema, there's Sil Poly, there's Sil Nylon, there's stuff that stretches, there's Xenon, there's just all these different things. Is there one particular setup that might be better for a newbie versus some of the stuff that's more detailed?
Have you ever watched, I did the video maybe 6 months ago, and it's called The Learning Curve for a Hammock. Have you seen that?
I think I have, yeah.
I just laid it out. I just say, man, it's all the stuff that you just talked about. It's like, if you're going to get into hammocks, this single little sack that encloses your body, like in a tent, you lay in a tent, but a hammock, you're basically wearing it, you're entering it and it's cradling you. So I did a video on hammock fabrics. It was very technical. I researched for a week because I realized I know what I know, but I didn't know a lot of this stuff. So I was going, I don't even, I've read the word ripstop all my life. I didn't even really realize what it meant with these threads in there stopping the rip. If it breaks, and the deniers and the calendared versus uncalendared, and on and on and on, and how these fabrics are processed. And, honestly, the easiest way to approach hammocking is to not get caught up on too much of the technical minutia, is to get a hammock, even if it's the cheapest one you can get on Amazon, or go buy an Eno, learn to hang it right. And, don't put your suspension straight out. And, hog mollies, the bigger you are, the more weight you have. You know, if you're a 67-pound person, it may not affect as much. But you think about it, you have this hammock and suspension straight out attached to two trees, and then you put weight in it. You're really got a lot of forces in there. So that's why they say the 30-degree angle, roughly. It softens the forces of the pull and the, yep, that right there is about 30 degrees. Put your hand out like that, put that hand. So that's about it. For me, it's about head high, forehead, head in that area. I always go my head end a little lower, my foot end a little higher. I like my foot end up a little bit, sinks me back into the sweet spot. It's just get one, learn to hang it where you're comfortable. Don't even worry about your insulation yet. When you're ready to sleep a night in it, if you're a camper, you probably have a camping pad, whether it's closed cell or thermarest. Put that in there, a little bit of the air out of it. Sleep in it in that. Just learn to wrangle that thing around. Maybe you don't have a tarp. People will try to rig their old tent fly over it. It's usually not long enough. Just go Home Depot, get you a 10 by 12, utility tarp. Put you up a ridge line, stick it out. Just make sure the ends of your hammocks are covered. Or buy a cheap tarp like a Chill Gorilla or whatever on Amazon. I think you can get some pretty good deals on tarps. Just make sure it doesn't leak and start from there. And it's like fishing or something. You might just stick with the old cane pole and bobber, and but you probably won't. You're probably going to want something to cast, get into fly fishing, whatever it may be. Deep sea fishing. You're going to go on, and eventually you're going to go, wow, I tried this other hammock. It felt more comfortable. And then you start realizing there's these, Hyper D fabric in 1.6 or 2.4, or some people like the double layer, 2 layers of a hammock, as opposed to a single layer. Like when they call these Enos and you get a double, what that is, it's not a double layer. It's not like 2 hammocks. It's just wider. You can see that sewn bit in, but most people get Enos like my nephew. They call it mocking. Like, let's say me and you are a couple college dudes.
Yeah.
I'm going, Chad, man, come on, let's go hang our hammocks today out there in the quad. We're not using any underquilts or pads. We're hanging out doing our homework, hoping somebody interesting kind of slides in there next to us, and we're sitting sort of buttocks to buttocks pretending we're doing our homework, hanging out.
Right.
It's a social hammocking, and I think the Eno is really great for that. And of course, it's great for backpacking. People think they're too heavy. Okay, everybody's different on weight, but a double camping hammock is 2 layers of hammock. It's like one hammock under another. And when you get into some hammocks that will support 400 pounds and war bonnet, it's going to be a 2.6 material on the inside and a 1.6 or something on the outside. But the 2 strengths of those materials are going to give that actual hammock the strength to hold 400 pounds. Then you get into suspension. And if you're like me and you use whoopee slings, a 7/64 am steel whoopee sling is rated to hold about 1,000 pounds. Now, some people will just look at that and go, I just don't trust it. Get yourself a 1/8 inch whoopee sling. It's going to hold so much more weight. Then make sure your tree strap is going to hold that weight, because now they have all these ultralight, oomph, spider lines. Some of the stuff I don't even trust, or people going with the thinnest Dyneema suspension they can get. My opinion is, don't save your weight on suspension. It's what's holding you. Nothing worse than you're hanging, you're sleeping good, and your hammock lets go. Oh man, you got to get up and deal with it. Save your weight on food or pack or knives or other places. There's always another place to save an ounce or two. I don't want my hammock to break, so I stick with good, strong stuff. I like single layer hammocks. I'm usually about a 1.6, 1.9. That's comfortable for me. But yeah, it's a very confusing journey. And the best thing is just get one. If you're comfortable in it, shut up and sleep in it until you get interested to delve in a little bit more and get into it. So personality wise, I got to a point in my hammock thing where I was going, and I'm there now. Yeah, I'm an old boomer. I'm set in my ways, which is why I didn't even want to try the Superior hammock. But I said, open your heart, man. Be open to change, Shug. Be like a millennial. It's all about the experience. And I mean that. I watched the documentary on millennials to understand their thought patterns more, and it's more experience based than commercial or, give me something I can hold on to. It's like, give me a moment I can enjoy. And so I am kind of set in my ways, and I try to stay in touch with the new fabrics and all that, like these new mono lights and these ones that you can actually see through. It's like Fredericks of Hollywood, and they're supposed to hold a lot of weight. Personally, my personal opinion, I've heard reports of them ripping. I don't want my hammock ripping, and I don't want it see-through. Just because, I'm a redheaded guy, and even though I have a top quilt and an underquilt around me, I just don't want I don't want to see through hammock. I want to know that that's going to hold me.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a little bit in some areas still a little closed-minded in some and open-minded in others. But hammocks have this evolution that is still happening. People are just inventing more and more things, more little bits of like Dutch with all the bling, little doodads to save you from tying a knot. I did a series on suspensions, and boy, by the time I was done, I had a headache. It took me a week. Whether you want to tie a Beckett hitch, some people don't want any hardware. Straps are the easiest thing to start with. Daisy chain is easy to start with. Then there's whoopee slings. Then there's UCRs. Then there's rings. Then there's trucker's hitch. And there's just a million ways to do it. So it is a perplexing little journey. So I think the thing is just start it, enjoy every minute of it, because you can only be new at something once. So it's like, enjoy that journey. And when people get frustrated, I go, man, you might be more comfortable just back in your tent. The hammock shouldn't make you cry and shouldn't make the veins pop out in your neck. Just, if you're not enjoying the journey, back to your tent. You're still camping. Let it go.
Yeah. That's awesome info right there, man. I've been through this process. I'm still going through this process, and I was picking up on just so many little things you were saying there that I want to make sure that I try or think about. One of the things that happened to me with tenting, and you mentioned this earlier, was I got caught up in going ultra light. And suddenly I've got a 15-ounce Dyneema tent, just barely long enough for me to squeeze into. I'm down on the ground, crawling around on the ground. I don't want to do that. I'm blowing up the sleeping pad. I don't want to do that. And I've been hiking all day. I'm tired. I'd rather just stand up to put something up. And I'm hoping the hammock takes care of that for me. I cannot wait to get a hold of that Superior Gear hammock and try that out. But I do have just a few other questions. They're not necessarily hammock related.
Well, let me tell you this one thing. In my little list of things that I love right here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things. Okay. So we were talking earlier about the coffee I was having in the morning.
Yeah.
In the hammock, I have this thing I call breakfast from the hammock. I always make my Medaglia d'Oro instant espresso, and I can lay in the hammock. Actually, when I get out to get my food bag, I take my whoopee sling or my strap and I pick my foot end up a little bit. It slides me back, and I can scoot all the way back, sit up, got my fancy feast stove, boil my water, have a couple of Pop-Tarts, eat my grits, and have my instant espresso sitting in the hammock in my top quilt in the morning. Winter, fall, spring, doesn't matter. Comfortable, just looking at the woods. My tarp is open. I'm covered. I can sit in a storm and do that going, I feel a little mist, but I'm high and dry. Watching the rain just pattering leaves. I'm not locked in. I can see the woods, having myself a cocoa. That's the whole reason I go. And then you wake up and go, all I got to do today is do what I did yesterday, is hike and not die. Simple as that. My friends are self-sufficient. That I love. And I love sitting up in the hammock to put my boots on. And even just crawling in, I don't have to get on hands and knees. And I'm 62. And how old are you, Chad?
I'm 42.
42. At 62, it's not the getting down that's so hard. It's the getting up. And I just, I've been meaning to do this video for years. I go, okay, I'm going to pack my lightweight tent, my hammock, going to go do like 3 days on the Superior Hiking Trail where I park the car at a trailhead, and I'll go 2 days this way in the tent and then come back, get my hammock, go south for a day, and then I'll do a video comparing which I like best. Well, I know what I like best. I'm going to sleep so much better in that hammock because in a tent, I would get 5 hours of sleep like I do at home. In a hammock, I sleep 10 to 12 hours. In the winter, 12 hours because it's dark in the woods by 4:30 and the sun's not coming up till 7:30. And you're just in there warm in that Superior hammock and your top quilt. It's just like, I don't know. I don't have to go build a bushcraft shelter. All I got to do is have some coffee and get up and take a poop and eat some breakfast. I mean, big deal. Cut some wood. I'm going to lay here. I'm warm. You know, that's, to me, backpacking should be joy. It's not a bunch of work. You know, it's not like I mean, it is work, but it's not like I have to go out there and survive. I got it all with me. So if you're comfortable, I am not ashamed of being comfortable, you know? Yeah, I started my fire with a Bic. I've got a striker, and I know how to use it. I practice with it, but I'd rather just click the lighter. It's in my pocket. I don't need to show everybody I can cut up some tinder and do that. I will, but I'm basically lazy. So yeah, there you go. So I hope you'll enjoy the, once you get it dialed in. Here's the other main thing, the consistency of sleep, because no matter if you're on the side of a hill or in a flat area, your hammock's going to be hanging pretty much the same, generally, depending on your tree spacing. And it's that consistency. I'm never, you know, that thing where you're on a hill and your door's facing downhill and your foot's just, you're just sliding, or a friend's sliding over on you, or you got a rock in your back. I mean, I never minded all that because you're camping, but you don't have that with a hammock. What you may have is your underquilt not keeping you warm enough, a few other issues, your suspension breaking. You have to be willing to live the tarp life. Can't zip yourself all in like a tent, you know, where you can't see outside in a hammock. What I love about it, you can always see something outside a little bit, you know. That's what I love. I don't want to be cocooned in. I don't care what animals might come up and look at me in the night. As long as they don't lick me or bite my face off, come and check me out. I don't care. Just don't wake me up. Yeah. Someone said once I should get a game camera to see what comes up and checks me out. And I'm going, I don't think I want to know. You know, best I don't see that.
So
that was my tirade.
So one of the things that Rooster and I have been talking about, and
Rooster
is this approach that you've changed our mindset about this. So first of all, we're hog mollies. And so we're hiking and we're like, man, I don't want to carry anything else that I got to, because I got 30 extra pounds on me. And so we strip down our gear as tight as we can. And then we go, you know what? We sit here and we watch Shug, and either because of necessity and it's wintertime, or just because you need to get away and you want to get out in the woods, you don't go do 10, 12 miles. You might do 5 or 6 miles and enjoy your afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always, you know, if I'm alone, unless I'm going, okay, the best way to commit to some mileage is go up there, park my car, get a shuttle to bring me down, and then I got to get there. But for me, camping, a lot of times, because I'm a YouTuber, if I don't put a video out for a while, people start, you know, oh, Sugar, you okay? When are you looking forward to your next video? Your subscribers start leaning on you a little bit. I'm sure you feel it with podcasts, like, where you been? Hope you're okay. And when that starts happening, I go, okay, I got to do something. But I hate to just do a video for the sake of just putting out another video. I think it weakens your content in time. So I'll just tell my wife, I said, I'm just going to go take a little camping trip, see what happens, because filming a backpacking trip for 2 or 3 days, it's just chronological. You know, you're just filming your little journey. And when I first got into this and I was researching hammocks, I was trying to find YouTube videos, and it was always people just filming the trail. And I'm like, at camp, I want to see what your cook pot is. I want to see what stove you're using. I want to see what tent you're in, what sleeping bag you have, what kind of boots you're wearing, what hat, what rain gear, what's your camp gear? Do you hike in the same stuff all day? You know, I want all of that. So I tried to include all of that in my videos to fill everybody's needs. And then I learned that people in the UK wanted me just to pan slowly. And I used to pan like this. Now I pan like this, very slowly. Kind of hold your breath if you can, and just let them see the woods you're in. Let them see the view from your campsite, and then go out and film back to the campsite. Let them see that place where you are. And I had to be willing to go, can't be all me, just blah, blah, blah. Got to just do a lot of that B-roll of just showing the woods, just let the woods play. So with some of these trips, it's just more, I mean, honestly, again, think of this, and I'm sure you've done it. You go out, you hike out about 8 miles day one, got a great campsite, right? Great night. All right, we got 4 more days. Tomorrow we're going to try to do 15 miles. And you go crank those 15 miles out, and you get to a campsite that's subpar, and you pass like 3 other ones. You go, well, this campsite sucks. I walked 15 miles to be here. This is a crappy little campsite. So it doesn't really matter unless it's your personal quest to prove to people they're always walking millions of miles. Screw that. The woods to me are joy. I have nothing to prove, and I will do some harder trips. And most of my trips, I'm going, I just don't really want them to be that hard. I just want to throw some food in, get my stuff, go out there and sleep in the woods for a few days. I don't even like day hiking because if I can't sleep out there, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because I'm always out day hiking going, man, I could really string up between those two. Yeah, you could get 4 people in here. And I'm like, we're going to hike back to the car and go home? I mean, and not sleep out there? and have breakfast from the hammock? I don't get it. So, yeah, I think what I've had to learn to show, a few people told me I made backpacking look too much fun. So I've tried to include some stuff where I'm panting or the hills are harder, try to make it look somewhat more miserable. But for the most part, when I'm out there, I'm full of joy. I mean, it is type 2 fun. It's a lot of work. And at the end of the day, you know, the harder trips are the ones you talk about. What makes us go out there? I don't know. Most people don't want to. Alex and I were talking about that camping up in the Boundary Waters last week. You know, it's 14 degrees and we're just sitting there going, most people don't want to walk across a lake and sit in the snow for a few days. I don't know why. It's beautiful, but not everybody does.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of my next question was why so much backpacking in the cold? Because I shy away from the cold, but you have the gear to do it. Your last video,
cold half the year.
Yeah, you're gonna lose all your backpacking time if you wait for it to warm up.
I swear, and it's 8 degrees out today, and I went down and worked in the ice rink, chopped some wood. Had a really good morning, but you know, I started thinking about that, going, I have to embrace winter camping. And me and Hickory did it in the beginning. We were just doing it with 3-season gear, just doubling up and shivering, you know, through the night. And you get up and go, it's a beautiful day. We're probably going to sleep again. Where you go, we would tell each other, I'm going, I'm not warm. I'm kind of cold, but I'm not going to die. So I know I need to invest in more gear and get more knowledge about how to camp in winter. But I just can't see hanging up, you know, camping for, you know, backpacking for half the year and just doing it 3 seasons. It just, that makes no sense. Winter camping is awesome, but I do have a lot of gear for it that I've accumulated.
Gotcha.
It's confidence. You got to be confident in yourself that you can handle it.
Cool. All right. So last question, and I asked this of everybody who's been a YouTuber that I've had on. So, so I have a thermo drop thermometer.
Yeah.
I have Packet Gourmet, which just showed up at the house today.
What meal is that one right there?
So this is the ramen rescue with chicken.
I love that one. That's a great, that ramen rescue is a satisfying meal, man.
And like we talked about earlier, I bought a hammock solely based off of the video I watched with you. That was the first hammock I bought. I cannot wait for it to get here. Whether you do you realize, I guess is my question, do you realize that you're an influence in the industry and to those that watch?
Well, you know, you don't think about it at first. I just wanted to do videos on hammock forums when I first started. So a friend gave me a camera because I'd always buy these little, the ones you could buy like at Walgreens, a little Instamatic, takes 27 pictures, and then you take and go get your photos developed. And my buddy who just stopped by the house today, he's a photographer. He said, hey, Shug, you take good pictures, man. I've got an old Olympus camera here. Why don't you take that and start taking digital? You can take more pictures. And I realized it had video, and I was going, oh, I won't have to write a trip report. I can just start recording. So I asked my daughter, I said, Ariel, how does I edited this video? How do I get this on like this forum I'm on? She said, well, Dad, you got to upload it on YouTube. So that's where my YouTube thing was, just uploading to YouTube so I could put the link over on the forum. In time, YouTube took over from the forum stuff because YouTube people started watching it. And of course, you know, if you're on YouTube long enough, I've had people call me some really ugly stuff. It thickens your skin. You got to be able to take it. And I don't fight back. I've got some good lines. Like if somebody says something really mean to me, I just go, hey man, don't run. I'll type, I bet your fingers stink. Or I go, your hatred is within yourself. You might want to check that. You know, I might write, why don't you just go throw a cat off a bridge and don't run your shuck on me. And sometimes I just write, people should pray for you. You need friends. Hopefully it strikes them. And I've had people come back and apologize to me because they said they were drunk. If you're on YouTube, you're showing the best part of your life. you know, and people think your life is like that all the time. Well, nobody's is, it's the same on all social media. You can't be happy all the time. You should wait for happiness to happen. When I was splitting wood today, I was nailing some. That was happiness, So you realize down the line, I don't like the word influencing. I hope I'm motivating older people to get back into camping. It doesn't have to be a hammock, because I never try to come off that hammock's the only way. I don't want everybody hammocking. Then the trees are all taken up. I think if you go with a group, the best thing is have a few tenters, few hammockers. But here's a strange little thing that happened to me 2 years ago on the Spear Hiking Trail. So I'd hiked all day, setting up camp, and you could see camp from the trail. And I'm already kind of, making myself a tea, and I'm sort of getting my dinner out to cook. And these two guys are walking by, and they came walking and said, "Hey, you're Shug, right?" Which is always kind of thrilling and horrifying when people recognize you. And I was like, "Yeah." Or if they go, "Are you Shug?" I go, "Maybe." "Do you like Shug?" "Oh no, man, we love him." "Then I'm him." And so they said, "Could we get a selfie?" So we're taking a selfie, and they look over at my cook kit and my little Hillbilly Pot. It's a little black Imusa pot that I carry all the time, and I call it my Hillbilly Pot. It's a beat up little cook pot sitting over there. And one of the guys went, "Hey man, it's Hillbilly Pot." And they asked me if they could take a picture with it. And I was like, "You want me in it?" They go, "Oh no, we got one with you." And they're over there posing with my pot, because it is almost a character in the videos. They've seen it so much. Now, to me, it dawned on me of how much power you have in this medium to influence people, good or bad. I just hope to come off that it's joyful, that older people can go, "Well, that idiot can do it. I can do it." I don't think backpacking is rocket science. You can make it as complicated as you want. You can make it as cheap and as easy as you want. Look, Grandma Gatewood walked the Appalachian Trail with a shower curtain to sleep under and a tote sack. Yep. Just go, be confident, be ready, have fun. Don't be nervous of the animals. Let them know you're there. "Hey, everybody, just passing through. Love your wood. Great woods, beautiful place. Just going to spend the night." And so, yeah, I try not to think about that, even though I know that is happening, because if I watch somebody's stuff, I get influenced by them. I've been watching some of Jim Baird's adventures, and I feel influenced by him. A lot of these Canadian canoers, because I like the alliteration, because I'm wanting to get more into canoer, and I feel like they're influencing me they just seem to eat better food, canoers do, than backpackers do. Although I think Packet Gourmet, I don't have a deal with them or anything. I just like their food. In fact, when I first started talking about them, every time I'd make an order, they go, "It's on us." And I finally told them, "No, let me pay. You can throw me in a couple of extras if you want." They always do, something to try. But I don't want to feel like I owe you or anything like that. I just like your food and want people to know about it. I just think your food is good, and you're a small independent USA company out of Austin, Texas. Man, I just like your food. It's as simple as that. So I'll show it, because I like to help the small person, not interested in helping Patagonia or, big brands, but the cottage manufacturers and the small people like Danny from Superior Gear, Sure, if you got a great product. And I do get people sometimes that get on me and go, your channel's getting like QVC. And I'm like going, is it really? Am I really trying to hard sell? That's you. I said, you may never see a Superior Gear hammock unless one of us guys shows it. But I don't want to, the thing that it does, and I have done it a few times, and I didn't feel good about it, review gear before I even really tested it, sort of tested it around the house. So now I'll only take stuff out in the woods, really show it. And then if I feel like it needs a proper looky-see, I'll do it. I may do that with the Superior Gear hammocks, but I'm still getting to know them, still trying them, still testing them, still falling in love with them. I got the bug net now, so I just ordered that from Danny, and I'm already looking to spring and really looking forward to trying that out in some better weather. So that's just where I am. I think if you just have yourself out there as a podcaster, you're going to be influencing people. People watch, they listen, and you give people something to think about and change their point of view. And it's a good thing as long as it's good stuff.
Awesome. So I think that's a great note to end on. I
All
want to
right.
thank Shug for his time, for coming on and hanging out with us for about an hour or so. I'm going to try to turn this not only into a podcast, but also hopefully I can get a YouTube video out of it. And I'll post links to all of his stuff up in there, including his Etsy shop. That's an example of his artwork right there. You see on over his shoulder. He's got some cool paintings out there. And I urge you guys to go out, check out his videos. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to laugh. You're going to have a good time.
Well, I'm retired now, man. I totally retired from my act during the pandemic because lost all my work, and I'm 62, taking my Social Security. I've done that for 40 years, and I'm like going, I'm going to leave the work to the young people. They need it more. My wife and I have done well as circus people. We met with Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, and she's got a circus school. But during the pandemic, we've held pretty steady because being 62, she taught me years ago, let's put some money away. Let's get IRA funds. Let's keep our lifestyle in check. We do what we call crank and bank. We take every gig that comes our way. And now it's kind of like I'm waiting to see I may never work again. I don't know what the next adventure is. People offered for me to be a guide. I don't want to be a guide. I don't want the responsibility. I want things easy, man. And I don't even know if I'll be ramping my trips up, but I am going to do more canoeing. But it's a cool place to be in life. So I get a little bit more time to paint, and I do sell them, but selling prints is not a big money. It costs me more to do them than it does what I make on them. But it feels cool because it's hammock art, and there's not a lot of hammock camping art. So it's just keep the busy hands and just keep interested in life. And like I said earlier, if you start something new, even when you're old, you got to start something new in order to be new at something again. So I wish I could go back to 2006 when I first got into hammocks and almost have that whole journey again, because I want you to remember that in your hammock journey. You and Rooster is enjoy every step of it, man, because in 10 years you'll be all set. You'll be a hammock curmudgeon. So just really enjoy it. Take your time with it. Enjoy every step, your failures, your successes, and take it out in camp. And make little notes for yourself or a mental thought going, I did well on this, I totally sucked on that, like we've always done in camping. And just keep that in mind. You're only new once, so enjoy that journey.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time, man. I really appreciate you hanging out with us.
Thanks for reaching out. It was nice talking to you through my computer here.